When I grew up, there was only two choices. You're either a sympathizer who cares about everything, or you're a logical person who has to shut off their feelings and think that that's okay. And I grew up on the outside looking in because I'm just the opposite of everything. I'm left-handed, I'm gay, I'm black, I'm tall, I'm whatever, I'm fabulous. But I learned how to empathize with every side because I was always in, yes, what people considered a minority group of some sort. But then I also interacted with what people considered, high society, whatever that means. And the only difference I learned was the socioeconomic status. But what it really comes back to is being prepared to understand that all humans, because we're just a species, we have things that we're going to feel but not know how to process. It doesn't mean that you can't feel it. It doesn't mean that you have to feel it. But you do have to acknowledge it so that you can let it go. When you can acknowledge that something is, I see that they're a sympathizer and they want someone to feel what they're feeling because they don't know how to feel yet. So I always take that energy on as a spiritual parent where I'm like, okay, I will sympathize with them momentarily, but then we're going to go into a state of empathy, which is, okay, I acknowledge what is going on. I listen in, I hear you, I respect your moment, have it. And once it's over, that's when you say, okay, are we ready to get up and go do something now that makes you feel good or happy or just integrating back into your day? Because everyone needs that integration time. A lot of times people, they try to find all these different techniques, and again, I'm not bashing anything. I use techniques all the time. I do mantras and everything and spiritual. I talk to the moon, okay? I'm into it all. But I also understand that there's moments of when you're still alone by yourself as an individual human being. No matter how much you've practiced, studied, or aware of, there will be moments when emotions will just creep up on you and you're like, where did that come from? You can be watching a commercial or something and whatever, and it's the slightest little thing and the body's like, oh, that's good. That is letting an emotion release itself, just like you pass gas and you poop and you pee and all this excrement. Emotions have to pass. The skin, we sweat and everything else. The emotions to me are the byproduct of the body trying to speak to us, and then the residual is what we're left with, thinking we're supposed to sit in it. And really, got instant all in my face. And really, it's just for us to be aware of it. That's really all it's about. When I speak about emotional intelligence, it's knowing that your emotions are a gift. And if you learn how to read them, then you actually learn much more than you could ever read in a book. Because at the end of the day, I read all the time, but most things I read, I recognize as, oh, this is influenced by this person, this is influenced by this person. And then I trace the pathology of who was the original thought. And then you think about the time of when it was written, and then you're like, yeah, I can see how they would think this way and how they had to conceptualize different types of things from their imagination, where, like, again, stuff we have now never existed. Clearly, that's why we're present time. So it would blow their minds that we're talking on cell phones and making videos and stuff, and it seems like it's out of thin air. It would seem like magic, which it is. And so recognizing this, we can actually trace our own emotions back to a place and time where we may have never existed in our minds, but our emotions have. And if you allow space and time to clear them, and you're not afraid of what I say facing, not so much trying to dwell in, not trying to remember. I don't want someone to be like, try to remember. How did you feel in that moment? No. To me, that causes trauma all over again. What I'm saying is, think of a time that you're uncomfortable with. If you're like, I don't like this moment, okay. Well, not how did you feel, but in that moment, what did you feel like you should do? This tells you how much logic you were taught or how much logic you believe in. And then it also tells me how much you sympathize with something and you become what I call stagnant. And you're not able to move past the emotion because it's immobilized you. This is the balance. You still have to, because I always tell people you can be the most logically logical person. You still have to go into your emotional world to feel something, to then think about it, then figure out a process to get there. I love service recovery, but I always tell people every problem that became a solution was a problem that became a solution, and every invention is a solution to a problem that creates maybe another problem, and then people create another solution. This is what we do as creators. This is what humans are for. And so that's why I say understand all levels of the mind, the body, everything. My forte is emotions because I grew up in an emotional world where everything was forced upon me. Even if I had a logical opinion about it, I was still told how I was supposed to feel, which is very interesting when you grow up and you meet other people and they're like, no one's ever talked to me like that. And I'm like, wow, yeah. Many people have told me how I'm supposed to talk and think and act and be. And then as a child, you have to take all that in, and then you grow up, and then you're still that child, and you just have more advanced thoughts and more experiences. But if you're not applying all that knowledge to the puzzle pieces so you can be done with that puzzle, you're going to have one of those huge 5,000 piece jigsaws that really none of it even goes together. It's going to take you forever. But what I start doing is I allow myself to sit in a sympathy for 2 seconds, find a logical technique to get me out, and then I meet myself in the middle with empathy, and I try to walk through it without being attached. I just look at it like a person watching TV. That's all you got to do. You don't have to do anything you don't have to interact, you don't have to say anything. You just have to observe it. Once you observe it, you come back to your present state of mind and say, is this still me? No, discard it. You're done with it. That's it. It's that simple, because when you understand how to empathize, you understand logically, like, oh, this ain't got nothing to do with me. Even if I tell them everything I know, they won't get it. So there's no point. And then sympathy, the same thing. Oh my gosh, you don't get me, you don't understand me, poor me, poor me, poor me. You're right, I don't. And I've been in that state of being, and that's how I can talk on it. I've known to isolated myself so much then, and I wonder, like, why don't I have enough friends? And it's like, I have friends everywhere. People talk to me all the time. But in my mind, sometimes I think like I don't, because I have never extended myself to let people see my emotional, spiritual side a lot. I talk a lot about what I know when it comes to just energy in general and what people go through. But for myself personally, I've learned to work through listening. And when you listen, the body feels at ease, the heart rests, the mind just flows, and then whatever comes out, I'm breathing, I'm here, and then everything just comes to you. You know, I mean, at this point I'm rambling, but if it makes sense, like I said, just there's always a spectrum. We've been built on a linear system for so long of sympathizers and logical. We're both. That's what these two halves of the brain represent. And because we're both, we're supposed to use both halves. This is the empathy through the third eye. This is epicinity. This is why I chose the brand name, because epicinity represents both halves of the masculine and feminine, and it integrates it. Androgyny, pretty, whatever. I've been called a pretty man for so long in my life. I'm like, I'm cute. But then they're like, I meet you in person and those eyelashes. I'm like, yes, love. They are good, right? No, but really, it's learning how to embrace all of the things that I've been through, so that when I start getting ideas and channeling messages and feeling things all at once, I know how to talk to my body just like you would talk to a baby that doesn't know how to speak yet. The same way you understand how to talk to your pets. Like, people have deep connections. I have deep connections to all the animals I've taken care of and with friends and stuff, and my own pet, my own baby. But the point is that it takes time. It takes time to really learn someone's energy. When you love them, you listen. And for me, I love everyone. I truly do. There's not one person I don't like, because I've been in situations like I've worked in the hospital. There's people who I don't, whatever they believe in, I don't have to agree in it, but I have to take care of them. So that taught me a lot as a young kid, working as a CNA and other things. But it opened my heart up to understand that these people are just frustrated. Ain't nobody ever gave them no real time of day, or they didn't really get the support they need. Whatever. You can see it. You can read it. Energy is so easy to read. But once you read it, it's what do you do with it? And that's where the intelligence part comes in, because once you get logically smart, you go past that, you become, we call it IQ. That's intelligence. So EQ is just, you get to a level of knowing emotions so well, you know what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you. You know what I mean? Like an emotion can come over you and you're like, why do I feel this way? You're like, no, that don't even belong to me. That's, we're in an energy field all times. Literally, we have Wi-Fi and everything. There's so much energy flowing through it. So sometimes I'm like, that was just something going through the air. It doesn't belong to me. I make sure that my energy's cleared, and I'm like, that was not for me, and I brush it away. And I feel good. I go right back to myself. So practice patience. Really, I've learned to slow down. I don't know if you watch a lot of my videos. Sometimes I do talk really fast, and other times I kind of go slow. Right now it's nighttime, so I'm talking lower. But yeah, you start really loving yourself a lot more when you get to a certain age. But you still take care of yourself. I'm still cute. No, I always say that because it makes me happy to know that people think I'm cute. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But at the same time, I'm not walking around thinking that I'm better than someone. You know what I mean? These are the types of things you have to learn how to deal with. I used to have people like, oh, you think you cute. Yeah, people tell me all the time. I don't see my face without a mirror or reflection. So why not own it? You know what I mean? And so that's where I started to learn how to be authentic with who I am and how I speak and how I represent myself. So when you are patient with yourself and you don't let people get to these, what we call emotions, then when you see that they really did get to you a little bit, that's when you go sit with and be like, why does that type of energy get to me? And then you can go back and again pick, discard, keep, get it out of your system, get it out of your discipline, take it out of your daily life. And then once you start making a new discipline for your life, then that's when you start transforming into a new person. You start transforming into new energy. This is the ascension process, the expansion process, because now you're in different states of awareness of, wow, my emotions and my logic were fighting, but they were one and the same the entire time, which is why duality is such a thing. And the splitting of two, and then we come back to the tertiary aspect of three, and then that goes out into our other consciousness and our other points of connection that lies in nature and spirit and other sentient beings. So just be aware of your environment. It seems challenging sometimes when we're taught so much about, you know, going into the silence. The silence is important, but I always tell people we still go back to the dynamicism. And so learning how to balance both is key. I'm telling people, I isolated myself too much and now I have to come back to the dynamicism. And so I'm balancing out. But there's people who stay in the dynamicism and they need to go to the silence. This is part of our dual halves. So remember, they're both meant to be respected. Just know how to listen to them when they're asking you to, And then this is where you stop the internal fighting with the ego and the soul and the mind and everything else and who thinks who's in control, because we feel like our free will is being stripped away, when really it's just us being conditioned by some type of shame or guilt of not really appreciating who we are. So thank you for listening. I love you as always. Check me out on all my social media platforms, and I think it's time for me to go to bed because it is like 1:10 in the morning, so I have to work in the morning. So that's why I'm a little more drowsy and chill. All right, love you guys.